Hi everyone, I'm your host Michael Short. Welcome to a series of interviews that we will be doing with a number of key individuals with the Alberta Fish and Game Association. We kick things off today with the President of the Alberta Fish and Game Association, Victor Benz. Vic, thanks so much for taking some time.
Thank you very much, Michael. It's always a pleasure to spend some time talking to you.
Well, let's talk a little bit about, I guess, at the 30,000 foot level, where is the Alberta Fish and Game Association today, and where do you want it to be, let's say, in a few short months?
So I want to tell our members that we've heard loud and clear their response. We thank them very much for their support in the special general meetings and the special resolutions that were passed last fall. And we've heard three key things. One is communicate. And in fact, this is part of that communication, this set of interview series. Secondly, we want a financially stable AFGA, and we've put items in place to address that. And finally, we recognize that we will have to reorganize and redefine the AFGA, looking to make it more relevant, more applicable to Albertans today and in the future.
On that last point, what is it that you feel has changed out there that hasn't made the AFGA as relevant as you think it should be?
A number of things. When the AFGA started 112 years ago, we were the only game in town. Heavily focused on conservation at that time, really dealing with, in those days, the federal government. The transfer of responsibility had not yet occurred to the provincial government back then. And now we've got 30 to 50 different organizations with very slim, in most cases, pieces of the pie that were once viewed as being part of the AFGA. We ourselves have tended to grow to be an older organization, and we may not have done as much as we could have to embrace the youth, and in particular the urban component, the young millennials coming in, and they tend to view things very differently than us old folks, so to speak.
What tools do you need? What tactics do you have to take in order to achieve a new direction for the Alberta Fish and Game Association?
Well, there's an excellent TED Talk by a fellow named Simon Sinek, and I'll provide the link with my interview, that talks about how things have changed, and that really organizations, particularly nonprofits, have to focus on the why they exist as the first key step. What is the purpose, the cause, the belief of the organization? Then we move out from that center to the how. How does the organization demonstrate its belief, its cause, its purpose? And finally, on the outside is, what are the deliverables? What do we do to show that we care? And people have historically looked at it the other way around.
Change is not easy for any organization. How do you feel that the membership will respond to proposed bylaw changes, other things that, in your opinion and in that of the executive, want to see something different?
We are encouraged by the feedback, limited though it be at the moment, that we have received. It's very interesting because I've recently been reading a book dealing with the first 50 years of the AFGA and how it focused on conservation as being the number one issue. And we're being asked by much of our membership to consider going back to that as the root of our purpose, of our being. So I think, based on what we've seen to date, and admittedly it's a small sample, but we're encouraged that we can find a way to move forward. And once we've made those decisions, we will then be able to codify it in our own governance documents. The key here is that not only do we need to codify it for our purposes, but we're actually required by the government under the Societies Act and also the federal government under Revenue Canada to codify this so we can maintain, for instance, our charitable status.
Probably important to point out that this is not just a one-person show. You've got an entire executive, and they've got a number of volunteers all working together. You've got a very proactive executive director that's part of the team. So it's a lot of folks sitting around trying to map out a new direction.
Absolutely. We've gone through 3 significant phases. The first one was last year, where we had a financial advisory committee to help us understand where we were and how we were going to get out of where we were. We've run a set of committees from the beginning of this year until about a month ago, and now we've put in yet another group, and they're all committed members. If you can give me a second, I'll take you through them. We have a communications committee under our second vice president, David Danenko, and their responsibility is to answer that first concern: communicate, meet the needs of our members. The second group, which is quite important, is what we call the FAR Committee, Finance, Audit, and Risk. And most people are familiar with finance and audit. It's the risk component that we want to add. We want to understand the financial risks that are faced by the AFGA and either reduce their frequency or reduce their impact on the organization. A critical group is under the chair of our fishing chair, Mr. Darrell Smith. That one is focusing on the why, how, and what component, really trying to come up with a systematic assessment of where we want to be to continue to be relevant within Alberta. And finally, we have the governance committee, which is chaired by myself. And we're responsible for reviewing where our documentation is today and also prepare us for that codifying in the future. It's important to realize that none of these committees work in isolation. We're all coordinated through our executive, and the AFGA executive is meeting monthly, actually, has been for most of this year to address those kind of concerns.
Till next time, I'm Michael Short on behalf of the Alberta Fish and Game Association. Thanks for watching.